Happy birthday, Anna. The chorus of voices filled my parents' living room as my sister blew out the candles on her elaborate cake. At 35, she still insisted on making birthdays a big family affair. I stood back, watching through my camera lens as I captured the moment, my husband Mike beside me. That's when my mother brought out the old photo albums. Look what I found while cleaning the attic, she announced, dropping 3 dusty leather-bound albums onto the coffee table. These are from when you girls were little. I noticed how my father's hand tightened around his wine glass, but I didn't think much of it at the time. If only I paid more attention to that first warning sign. The family gathered around as Mom opened the first album. There were the usual embarrassing baby photos, school pictures, and family vacations. Anna was cooing over every image, remembering details I'd long forgotten. I'll remember this Christmas when Dad dressed up as Santa and got stuck in the chimney. She laughed, pointing at a photo of our father covered in soot. Then we reached the photos from the summer of 1993. The summer everything changed, though none of us knew it at the time. These are from the lake house, Mom said, her voice softening. The last summer we spent there. I felt Mike tense beside me before I even registered what I was seeing. He leaned forward, squinting at a particular photo, our family pose on the lake house porch, all smiles and summer clothes. Kate, he whispered, his finger hovering over the image. Don't you see it? At first I didn't. I saw myself at 8 years old, gap-toothed and sunburned. Anna at 5, clutching her favorite stuffed rabbit. Mom and Dad looking young and carefree. But then Mike pointed to the window behind us. The reflection, he said. That's when I saw it. In the window's reflection, partially obscured but unmistakable, stood a figure. A woman in a blue dress, watching our family photo being taken. A woman who looked exactly like my Aunt Marie. The problem. Aunt Marie had disappeared 3 days before this photo was taken. Her car was found abandoned at a gas station 50 miles away. She was never seen again. The room went silent. I could hear the tick of the old grandfather clock, the hum of the ceiling fan, the sudden rapid beating of my own heart. That's impossible, Anna whispered, leaning in closer. They told us she left town, that she started a new life somewhere else. I looked at my parents. Mom had gone pale, her hands trembling as she tried to close the album. But Dad's reaction was the most telling. He stood up abruptly, walking to the window with his back to us all. It's just a shadow, he said firmly, still not turning around. Light playing tricks. We shouldn't discuss this. But it wasn't a shadow. The figure was too clear, too distinctive. I'd know my Aunt Marie anywhere. She had been my favorite aunt, the one who taught me photography, who encouraged my dreams when my parents wanted me to be more practical like Anna. Dad, I said slowly, what really happened to Aunt Marie? He turned then, and I saw something I'd never seen in my father's eyes before. Fear. Catherine, drop it, he warned. Some things are better left in the past. But I couldn't drop it. That photo changed everything. The official story, that Aunt Marie had run away from her troubled marriage, started fresh somewhere else, had never sat right with me. She would have contacted me, I always thought. She wouldn't have just vanished without a word. Mike took out his phone, snapping a picture of the old photo before Mom could close the album. Always the detective, my husband. It's what made him good at his job in digital forensics. The timestamp, he murmured. August 15, 1993. 3 days after she was reported missing. Anna started crying softly. I remember that day. Marie was supposed to take me shopping for my first day of kindergarten. She promised. Mom stood up suddenly, gathering the albums. That's enough. This is supposed to be a celebration. Anna, let's cut the cake. But the damage was done. The carefully maintained facade of our family's past had cracked, revealing something dark beneath the surface. Something that had been hidden for 30 years. As everyone awkwardly moved to the dining room, I stayed behind, staring at the spot where the photo had been. Mike squeezed my shoulder. We're going to figure this out, he promised quietly. I nodded, my mind already racing. Because there was something else in that photo. Something I hadn't mentioned yet. In the reflection, Aunt Marie wasn't just standing there. She was holding something. Something that looked like an envelope. And I remembered, suddenly and with crystal clarity, the last thing she'd said to me. Katie, if anything ever happens to me, look behind the darkroom panel. Promise me. I've forgotten that conversation for 30 years, but now, looking at that photo, It all came rushing back. The darkroom she'd built in the lake house basement. The panel she'd installed herself. The way she'd made me promise, so serious, so unlike her usual cheerful self. I caught my father watching me from the dining room, his expression unreadable. He knew I'd seen something in that photo, something beyond just Marie's reflection. And for the first time in my life, I was afraid of what my father might do to keep the past buried. But I had to know the truth. I owed it to Aunt Marie. The lake house had been sold years ago, but I knew exactly where to start looking. Because what no one else knew was that I had kept the key to the darkroom. All these years, it had hung on a chain around my neck, a reminder of the aunt who had disappeared without a trace. It was time to unlock the truth. The drive to the lake house felt surreal. Mike sat beside me, scanning old property records on his tablet, while I gripped the steering wheel, my aunt's darkroom key feeling heavy against my chest. The house has been empty for 2 years, he said. Foreclosed after the last owners couldn't keep up with the payments. No security system installed. I nodded, trying to ignore the knot in my stomach. After Anna's birthday party ended, things had gotten tense. Dad had pulled me aside, his voice low and threatening. "Leave the past alone, Catherine. You have no idea what you're stirring up." But his warning only strengthened my resolve. What could be so terrible that my father, the man who taught me to always seek the truth, would want it buried? The lake house appeared around the bend, a shadow of its former glory. Paint peeled from the wooden siding, and weeds choked the once beautiful garden where Aunt Marie had taught me about different flowers. The sight made my heart ache. "Ready?" Mike asked, squeezing my hand. We parked behind the house, out of sight from the main road. The back door's lock was easy enough for Mike to pick, something I chose not to question about my husband's skill set. The musty smell of abandonment hit us as we stepped inside. Everything was different, new paint, different furniture left behind by the last owners. But the layout remained the same. I made my way to the basement door, my flashlight beam dancing across the walls. The darkroom was her sanctuary. I explained to Mike as we descended the stairs. Dad never came down here. He said the chemicals gave him headaches, but Marie told me once that he was afraid of what the darkness might reveal. The darkroom door was still there, though someone had painted it the same beige as the basement walls. My hands trembled as I fitted the key into the lock. It turned with a quiet click. Inside, the room was empty except for built-in counters and cabinets along the walls. No equipment remained, but I could almost smell the familiar scent of developer fluid and stop bath that had once filled this space. "The panel," I murmured, running my hands along the wall. "It has to be here somewhere." Mike started checking the cabinets while I examined every inch of wall space. After 20 minutes of searching, frustration began to set in. Then Mike called out, "Kate, look at this." He was pointing to what appeared to be a normal section of baseboard, but when I knelt down, I saw it. A tiny photographer's viewfinder symbol carved into the wood. "Help me pull this off," I said. Together, we managed to pry the baseboard away from the wall. Behind it was a small cavity, and inside, a manila envelope yellowed with age. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside were photographs, dozens of them, and a handwritten letter. "Dear Katie," it began. "If you're reading this, then something has happened to me. I've suspected for months that Thomas, your father, has been involved in something dangerous. At first, I thought it was just gambling debts, but it's worse than that." The letter went on to detail how my father had become entangled with a group of local politicians and businessmen who were running an elaborate fraud scheme. Aunt Marie had discovered evidence of their crimes, evidence she photographed and hid in here. The photos, Mike said, spreading them out on the counter. They showed meetings in dark parking lots, documents being exchanged, faces I recognized from old news stories about corruption in our town. "Look at the dates," I whispered. The last photo was taken the day before Aunt Marie disappeared. But it was the final paragraph of her letter that made my blood run cold. "Katie, if anything happens to me, know that your father is directly involved." I confronted him about the evidence, thought I could reason with him. He told me I had 2 choices. Take the money they offered and disappear, or disappear anyway. "I'm leaving these photos here because I know you'll find them someday. You always were the one who asked questions, who looked deeper. I'm sorry I won't be there to see the wonderful woman you'll become." My vision blurred with tears. All these years we believed she'd abandoned us. But she'd been threatened, forced to leave to protect herself. And maybe to protect us too. Kate, Mike said softly, holding up one last photo. It showed my father and two other men loading something heavy into the trunk of a car. The date stamp was August 12, 1993, the night Aunt Marie disappeared. The sound of footsteps upstairs made us both freeze. "Catherine," my father's voice called out, "I know you're down there. We need to talk." Mike quickly gathered the photos and letter, stuffing them into his jacket. I stood at the darkroom door, heart pounding, as my father's footsteps descended the basement stairs. The truth about Aunt Marie was finally coming to light, but I had a terrible feeling that wasn't the only secret about to be revealed. "Coming up, Dad," I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. But as I reached for the doorknob, I noticed something else carved into the wall, something I'd missed before. A series of numbers, and beneath them, two words that made my heart stop. "Find her." My father stood at the bottom of the basement stairs, his silhouette blocking the dim light from above. He looked older somehow, the weight of 30 years of secrets visible in the slump of his shoulders. "The photos," he said quietly. "Hand them over." Mike stepped forward, positioning himself slightly in front of me. "That's not happening, Thomas." I clutched the carved numbers I quickly copied onto my phone. "Find her." The words echoed in my mind. Was it possible? After all these years, could Aunt Mary still be alive? "You don't understand what you're getting into," Dad said, taking a step forward. "Those men in the photos, they're still powerful, still dangerous. Like they were dangerous to Aunt Marie?" I shot back. "Did they make her disappear, Dad? Or did you do that yourself?" His face crumpled for a moment, showing a flash of something I'd never seen before. Regret. "I tried to protect her, offered her money to start fresh somewhere else. But she was stubborn, like you. Said she had evidence, was going to expose everything. So you chose them over your own sister." "I chose to keep my family safe," he snapped. "They would have killed her, Catherine. This way, she at least had a chance." Mike's hand found mine in the darkness, squeezing gently. "The numbers," he whispered. "Their coordinates." Suddenly, everything clicked into place. The lake house location, the specific date of the photo, the numbers carved as a last resort. Aunt Marie hadn't just left evidence, she'd left a trail. "Where is she?" I demanded. Dad's expression hardened. "Let it go, Catherine. Please. For your own safety." "Like you let her go?" I pulled out my phone, holding it up so he could see the screen. "These coordinates, Dad. What would we find if we followed them?" He lunged forward suddenly, reaching for my phone. But Mike was faster. In the scuffle, something fell from my father's pocket, a small key identical to the one I wore around my neck. The basement fell silent as we all stared at it. "You kept your key," I whispered. "All these years you said you never came down here, but you kept the key to her darkroom." Dad sat heavily on the bottom step, looking defeated. "I check every few years," he admitted. "To make sure the evidence stays hidden. To protect her." "Protect her, or protect yourself?" "Both." He looked up, his eyes shining with unshed tears. "She's alive, Catherine, living under a new name in Oregon. Those coordinates, they lead to a safety deposit box in Portland. I've been sending her money, making sure she stays hidden." My knees went weak. Mike caught me before I could fall. "Take me to her," I demanded. "Katie, I can't." "You owe me this, Dad. You owe her." 3 days later, we stood outside a small bookstore in Portland. Through the window, I could see a woman with silver-streaked hair arranging books on a shelf. Even after 30 years, I recognized her immediately. "She opened this place 5 years ago," Dad explained quietly. "Books and photography. She always loved both." I turned to him. "Those men in the photos, the ones you protected. Most of them are dead now," he said, "or in prison for other crimes. The ones still alive are too old to care about ancient history." "Then why keep her hidden?" "Habit," he admitted. "Fear, shame." Mike touched my arm gently. "Bawan," he said. "We'll wait here." The bell above the door chimed as I entered. Aunt Marie looked up, her practiced shopkeeper's smile freezing as our eyes met. "Katie," she whispered. I pulled out the old photo from my bag, the one that had started everything. "I found what you left for me," I said, my voice shaking. "I finally understood your last message." She moved around the counter slowly, as if in a dream. "I knew you would," she said softly. "You were always the one who saw things clearly." When she hugged me, I breathed in the familiar scent of her perfume. The same after all these years. Over her shoulder, I saw Dad and Mike enter the store. "Thomas," she said, not letting go of me. "Marie." Dad's voice cracked. "I'm sorry. I was a coward." "Yes," she agreed. "But you kept me alive. Kept Katie safe. Maybe now it's time we all stopped hiding." That evening, we sat in Marie's apartment above the bookstore, looking through 3 decades of photos she'd taken in her new life. She had traveled, taught photography, built a quiet but beautiful existence for herself. "I missed you every day," she told me, touching my face gently. "But I knew someday you'd find that key, understand those numbers. You always were the one who could see the truth in an image." Looking around at my reunited family, Mike's quiet strength, Dad's repentant acceptance, Marie's resilient spirit, I realized that sometimes the truth, no matter how long buried, finds its way to the light. And sometimes in that light, we find not just answers, but redemption. "Welcome home, Aunt Marie," I whispered. "Welcome home."